Welcome to this special edition of the UG Polls 2021. My name is John Jimmy Musimbi, and of course this evening we shall be discussing with one of the presidential candidates, and she's the only female candidate in the race, and that is none other than Nancy Linda Kalembe. But one would wonder, who is Nancy Linda Kalembe? Before we go into this interview, the topic we're discussing is the last lap to the elections. Now, Nancy Kalembe graduated with a bachelor's in science in population studies from Makerere University in 2007, and of course in 2003 she joined the Miss Uganda contest, but of course she didn't win, ending up emerging as the winner named Miss Intelligence, which earned her a job at Sanyu FM. In January 2008, and that's on 8th, she joined The Apprentice Africa, which is a reality TV show Africanized from the American version. This also, of course, she emerged the 6th out of the 16 people who were up for grabs. And then she worked with PHP Bank in Nigeria. She returned in Uganda in 2009 and worked with Orient Bank. Now, Nancy Kalembe has also served as a news anchor with the national broadcaster, that is Uganda Television, but also served in different capacities at Uganda Telecom as the accounts manager, and of course at Nation Media Group as well. Allow me introduce to you this lady as we get directly into the interview. Good evening and welcome to Record TV, Madam Nancy Linda Kalembe.
Good evening to you too. How do you do?
Good. Now we head straight to this interview. With this rich experience that I've just read this evening, does this make you a presidential material?
You left out a number of things. About the Uganda Telecom, I was their account manager in Lower Canada. I worked in an advertising firm that was working for Uganda Telecom. So I needed to make that record straight. And before I joined the presidential campaign, I have done agriculture, agro-processing. I've done my own businesses in cleaning. I set up one of the biggest oil companies in Uganda that deals with wholesale and bulk sales. So before I joined the presidential race, that was my last job. I was working in an oil company. Okay, and I believe that the experience I've had in the different spaces have prepared me well to run this country, because I have garnered experience in different industries in this country. I believe right now, as I speak, I'm the only presidential candidate who has the kind of work experience and knowledge in the different industries in this country. And I'm also the only presidential candidate that has served on all the 7 mountains of influence in our country.
Well, Madam Nancy, I would love to understand, has the suspension of physical rallies affected your campaigns?
It has affected all our campaigns. They've suspended campaigns in major towns, cities, and districts, and of course that has affected us. But as we all know, life is full of curveballs. When they send you one, you have to manage it. When someone gives you lemons, you make lemon juice. So the challenges that we have were expected, because we know that the platform on which we are as presidential candidates is tilted towards the incumbent. So it's affected us, but it is not going to stop us from going ahead.
You seem worried by the halt on physical rallies, but of course, as you've highlighted,
I am not worried.
Okay, fine. You clearly state you've served this country in several capacities. What?
My manifesto, we identified 7 points in my manifesto. However, I don't know if the time is enough, but I will just name them, just the 7, without explaining any further. One of the things that, number 1 in my manifesto is faith. The second thing is family. The third is education. The fourth is the economy. The fifth is arts, sports, and entertainment. The sixth is the media. The seventh is leadership, because we know all things rise and fall on leadership. We will be paying a lot of attention we'll be paying attention to health care services, because that is one sector that touches every being in this country.
The voter outside there would love to understand, do you think voter suppression will play a key role in the outcome of next Thursday's presidential election?
I am not God, so I cannot say what is going to happen tomorrow. It's only God who can see what is in tomorrow. The voter suppression has probably been planned. We're not aware. But from what we've seen along this election period is that there's been a lot of imbalances and a lot of unfair things that have been done by Electoral Commission. We pray and hope that this coming election will prove to Ugandans that all authority comes from God and not from man.
From your own rating, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the performance of the Electoral Commission, and do you think it has ably taken on the mantle to handle this election effectively, and you hope for a delivery of a free and fair election?
Personally, I think it is very unfair to rate Electoral Commission on their performance, because they were given a job and their hands were tied behind them. So it is not, I don't think that I should be rating them, because I know that they've been muzzled, they've been intimidated. Today we were looking at the list of returning officers across the country, and one of the things that stood out for me is that this government apparently doesn't think that apart from people who come from one region, others have the sense and the brains and the experience to run Electoral Commission offices across the country. So that is a very sad thing. I personally believe that some of the people in Electoral Commission have not been put in their positions because of what they bring to the table, because of their experience or their professionalism. They've been placed there to ensure that the incumbent stays in power. So I cannot rate an Electoral Commission that has obviously been positioned for failure in this election. So it will be up to Ugandans to overwhelm the system. It's happened before in other countries. We know that in Malawi we had a similar situation, but the incumbent was actually overcome by the people's voice, by their vote. So I call upon Ugandans to not be intimidated by all the military deployment, all the police deployment in the different places. All those are, I would call them the last kicks of a dying horse. This government is actually getting out of office. So I wouldn't focus so much on rating an Electoral Commission that is obviously being disempowered.
You sound to give Ugandans a lot of hope, and you talk with so much vigor. Assuming you are voted president next week on Thursday, what's going to be the first thing you're going to do, Madam Linda?
Wow, thank you for that question. I talk with a lot of vigor because I have a lot of hope. I have hope that Ugandans this time are awake and are not going to be intimidated anymore, because they are awake to the fact that it is actually their decision that's going to determine what kind of leaders they're going to have. So it is a very exciting time that we live in right now. As the next president of Uganda, I will say three things. You asked for one, I'll give you three things that I intend to do as I get into office. Number one, we need to put the right leaders in the different offices, not considering tribe, religion, or political affiliation. We just need to get people who are qualified, who have the right talent or the right strengths for the different leadership positions across the country. Secondly, we need to empower them. As leaders, they need to be empowered in order to do their job. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is that these leaders need to work together in order to build structures across this country, because currently our country is running on one human being, one individual. If he drops dead, we are, God forbid, we are in trouble. However, when the structures and systems are put in place, we will be able to run an efficient country, administratively, economically, basically, overall, run an efficient country. The third thing I intend to do when I become president of this country is we need to do a national audit. We know that we have been robbed blind as Ugandans. We don't know where our national coffers are. We don't know how much resources we have as Ugandans. We don't even know what kind of wealth as Ugandans we have. We've been working with a deficit budget for a long time. But is it really been a deficit budget, or is it been a case of mismanagement by a leadership that had no clue how to run a nation, but only how to enrich themselves?
You sound to make, as the opposition, you've always made several accusations and, of course, criticized President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni's government. I would love to understand from your own perspective, what criteria do you have on table to deliver a credible government? You've always talked about Museveni's cabinet having many ministers. You've talked about parliament having an overwhelming number of members of parliament. And of course, the criteria to make appointments. You talked about maybe one region, appointments coming from a certain region dominating. So share with us that criteria you hope to use for such appointments, maybe how you hope to organize your cabinet, and of course maybe the legislature to deliver a credible government to Ugandans.
First and foremost, I need to make a correction. I am not opposition, because the office of the presidency does not belong to one man. I am a Ugandan who is exercising my right to run for the highest office in this land, to deliver services to a nation that badly needs them. So when the opposition, when the people who are running for offices like this start by saying that they're opposition, they're already running as underdogs. I am not opposition. This is an open election, and every Ugandan ought to be running for office. This office doesn't belong to one person. So I don't like that label of opposition. I'm just a Ugandan willing to serve my nation. Now, to get to your question, what criteria do we want to use to lead this nation equitably? You have heard me talk about Mission 56. My mission is to the 56 tribes of this country. And in so doing, we will be picking leaders, choosing leaders, depending on their qualifications. We will not be considering tribe, religion, and political affiliation. I don't care what tribe you are or what religious beliefs you have. That's between you and God. Your political affiliations, I don't care about that. What I care about is, are you Ugandan? Are you qualified? Then let's work together. Do you have a heart for this country? Do you have integrity? And are you willing to serve selflessly? That's the criteria we intend to use. About the number of ministers and the number of members of parliament, we've been talking about the national debt. And when you're dealing with debt in everyday life, I'm sure most people have had to deal with debt at some point in their lives. When you're dealing with debt, you have to first understand, do you want to get out of debt? If you do want to get out of debt, how are you going to do it? Do you pile expenses on, or do you find ways of cutting your budgets? One of the challenges we have in this country is the administrative budget is too high. And there's a lot of misappropriation and mismanagement when numbers are beyond controllable. So yes, in my government, I will be reducing the number of ministers so that we can have a smaller team that is more efficient. As far as members of parliament are concerned, you are aware that the members of parliament that get into parliament have been elected by the different constituencies. So these are people who are voices for the people. It is not about firing members of parliament, because according to our constitution, the president does not have that right. However, we can reposition them. Some of them can become ministers, others can become leaders of different authorities. Since their people have voted for them, the best thing to do in order to reduce the administrative costs in our country is to reposition them, give them different functions so that they can work together with this government for the next 5 years, so that we can have an efficient team working in different places. We know that we have authorities, we have ministries, and all these government jobs in this country. And we need competent people to work there. Who best to pick other than the people who have actually been sent to Parliament if we are to reduce the size of Parliament?
During one of your campaign trails that's in Arua district, you've been overheard telling the electorates to avoid bloodshed, especially during the electoral period. What actions do you as a candidate hope to use to reduce violence, especially in the capital, Kampala?
Well, for starters, if you're a leader, it means there are people who follow you, who listen to you. I happen to be a mother, and I happen to have entered a labor ward to bring life into this world. So I know what it takes to bring life into this world. So I do not trifle with people's lives. I would not want people's lives to be lost in this period. So I've told the people, as you've mentioned, the people of Arua, I told them that first, most of the people who are involving themselves in activities that bring bloodshed, their children are safely tucked away in their homes. While they are telling you, let us rally together, let us fight, let us do this, their children are tucked away. That's why you find that even when there's a rally, these presidential candidates are carried away to their homes. And guess what? It is the ordinary man and woman who are suffering. Then for the incumbent, all he does is send orders from above, and bloodshed happens. So when it comes to this season especially, the only way we can get Ugandans to realize that bloodshed is not good is by telling them their families are going to be lost. We're going to lose fathers, mothers, children, all for what? Because we are fighting for one selfish human being to get into office, or to help one selfish human being retain office. At the end of the day, for any leader who is willing to shed blood to remain in office is not worthy to be called a leader of this nation. And for any other leader who thinks that the only way they are going to get public recognition, what I call cheap popularity, is by rallying people to fight, that is not necessary. This is supposed to be a democratic nation. And if people say they are tired of this current government and the current leader, he should gracefully bow out, as he so famously said he loved Uganda enough to get into the struggle to bring peace to this nation. That was his first act of kindness towards this nation. I'm kindly asking, and I've said this before, the next act of kindness for President Museveni right now, with all due respect, is for him to step down as the president and allow this presidential election to be free and fair. And for my colleagues, the presidential candidates, you know your leaders in your own right. Speak to your people, the people who are following you and listening to you. If you're a good leader, then you should be discouraging violence, because it is not necessary.
Well, our time is fast spent, but before maybe I can let you go, second, you've served as a journalist before at UTV and of course maybe at Sanyu FM in another capacity. You've anchored news before. I would love to understand what you make of the profession of journalism. Do you think it's lately been tainted by partisan behaviors or not? And what do you make of the police brutality towards journalists?
First and foremost, journalism is a profession, just like you'd call medicine, teaching. It's a profession. Journalists just happen to put their lives on the line sometimes when they need to tell the stories that are being covered up. And currently, this government is trying to retain power. As a former journalist and as someone who's been part of the media fraternity, I sincerely sympathize. Actually, I'm the only presidential candidate who has media in their manifesto. Now, about the police brutality, these are people who have orders from above. Still, we are talking about bad leadership. It's the 7th point in my manifesto, and I always say everything rises and falls on leadership. Police, army, and all the ununiformed individuals who are bringing brutality and bloodshed to our country are following very bad orders from above, from a very bad leader who doesn't care about, obviously, the lives of the people that they lead. Now, I do call upon journalists to continue doing their job. Police brutality will come to an end come 14th January this year. So I call upon you, please cover the polling stations, do your job, and you will be rewarded for it. I believe that a country can actually be changed by journalists. You have pens, papers, cameras, recorders, and those are very great weapons of war without actually shedding a drop of blood. You've seen what journalists did in America very recently. They literally changed government by letting the people know what they needed to hear or what they didn't want to hear, either way, depending on what side of the ballot you're on. Now, in this case, in Uganda, journalists actually have the ability to help change this government. This can be a war of information, a war that journalists stand on the battle line, on the front line. And it is up to the journalists right now to decide whether we stay with the current government with all the oppression, or we change government and usher in a new kind of leadership that actually brings freedom to Ugandans peacefully, without bloodshed.
Madam Nancy, our time is fast spent, but as we get to an end just in about a minute, I would love you to rank for us your top districts that you think are really supporting your mission and your strategy on how you plan to win next Thursday's presidential election.
First and foremost, when you're in a battle, you don't share strategies because that is top secret. No one shares strategies, otherwise they are not strategies, or they will be lies. So about the top districts that are supporting me, I have been to close to 100 districts, and we are going to see more these 10 days. To say that one district is supporting me more than the other is like a parent choosing one child over another. And since I am a mother, I will not engage in that. Please forgive me. But I know that I have a lot of support across the country, especially from the women, the mothers of this nation.
Well,
I also have a lot of support from my brothers, fathers and sons of this nation who are supporting me. So I want to thank them so much. And I ask them to vote wisely. Kalembe Nancy, independent candidate, and I am the only female presidential candidate on that ballot paper. My symbol is a ball.
Well, thank you so much. That has been a very special edition of the UG Polls 2021. My name is John Jimmy Musimbi, and of course, right about now, we join Shamim Nabakoza for the Speak Uganda News Bulletin. Good evening, Shamim. What should people expect in the news?
Good evening to you.